Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to another installation of the COG 2023 Summer Workshop Series. My name is Billy, if we have not previously met. Today, we're going to be going over SQL, which is a really important language for a lot of different fields and very important in industry work. I unfortunately can't be there with you today. It looks like I'm in prison, but I'm just at Ohio State. So Katie is going to be walking you through the tutorial today, and she'd done most of the heavy lifting for this, so you guys are in really good hands. So let's start off by just talking a quick introduction about what SQL is, right? So SQL is actually an acronym, although it's like a little twisted. So it stands for Structured Language Query. And you can mostly just think about it as like another programming language, right? It's got like a slight little twist in that SQL is really only effective when it's connected to SQL servers. So you could kind of think of SQL like Git and a SQL server like GitHub, right? Where you are using this language in order to pass information back and forth between some sort of like a repository or some sort of like a server, right? And again, we call them SQL servers for a reason. So what is a SQL server? So a SQL server is a specialized server or computer which manages multiple terabytes worth of data in a structured and secure manner. I mean, these could sometimes be hundreds of terabytes of data. Again, this is a very common tool used in industry. So you think about Facebook, Netflix, Google, Apple, any sorts of these like really, really large companies that are harvesting your data constantly. So they have a ton of it. They're going to be using SQL or some derivative of SQL to manage all of that data and to access that data whenever they need to run whatever analyses that they need to run. So some of the advantages of a SQL server are that they do have a lot of security protocols to determine who can query, update, or delete data at any given time, right? There are a lot of permissions that are set by the server manager. It has automatic backup systems and data protections. So even if somebody does make a mistake or there's some sort of an outage or some sort of damage, the SQL server generally will perform automatic backups so that you don't need to worry about losing your data. And the other great thing is that SQL you can interact with SQL to facilitate large-scale data retrieval and analysis, right? So it's often going to be the case that we don't want to pull out all of the terabytes of the data in our database in order to do our analysis. That would take weeks probably just to get that onto your computer, if your computer could even handle it. And even if it could handle it, like what kind of a program are you going to open, right? Excel has a certain number of rows it's allowed to have before it just craps out. What SQL allows us to do is, before we even get that data, just subset it on the server that it exists in, and then only pull in the data that we really care about, and allows us to run analyses on that data in an energy and time efficient manner. Again, right? It's very quick. You don't necessarily have to wait for it to go through and find that data for like hours at a time. It can find it in like almost an instant. Again, it's also very energy efficient. You don't have to have like a supercomputer at every desk, right? You could just have your laptop. You could just have some sort of a desktop, and it's still able to work with these really large scale data sets. And again, like I mentioned, it's also just a really important language if you do decide that you're going to go into industry, tech, any sort of a situation where they have these really large data sets that they want to protect and which inform how they make decisions within their company. So just a quick roadmap of what we're going to be doing today, or I should say what Katie is going to be doing with you guys today, because I can't take credit for it, unfortunately. So yeah, we're going to start off by downloading the necessary prerequisites. This is honestly, I think, going to be a big part of what we're going to be doing today, just because it can be, a little bit confusing. I think Katie's done like a really fantastic job outlining those steps in a really clear manner. We tested these pretty extensively, so hopefully the issues are minimal at this stage. But once we get past setting up those necessary prerequisites, then we're going to show you how to set up the SQL Server in Rstudio and Jupyter Notebook, depending upon what your preference is. Then we're going to go on to building an example database in SQL so that we can work in that and teach you guys things about syntax, data structure, and functions in SQL. Luckily, relative to like a lot of other languages, I think SQL is pretty accessible. There's not like a ton of complication with the functions. It's like pretty simple stuff. You can obviously make it a lot more complex if you want to like get more advanced, but the basics can be picked up pretty quickly usually. So we're going to test that out with some SQL practice. And then after that, we're going to get a little bit more advanced and show you how you can use SQL to integrate with R to run like analyses and descriptive statistics. So I think with that being said, let's get started.